The violent protests in Montreal have brought Canada into a moment of reckoning, forcing the country to confront the realities of division, unrest, and the consequences of political inaction. Scenes of burning vehicles, shattered windows, and clashes with police have flooded media outlets, leaving Canadians with a profound sense of unease. Beyond the immediate chaos, the events have ignited heated debates in Parliament, with opposition leaders and government officials exchanging sharp accusations over the root causes of such upheaval. Critics of the government argue that these incidents are not isolated but rather the result of years of policies that have eroded social cohesion. The Prime Minister, who has emphasized inclusivity and identity politics, is accused of fostering divisions rather than unity. Opposition leaders contend that these policies have created an environment where individuals are categorized by race, gender, or other factors, sidelining the collective Canadian identity. They point to rising hate crimes as evidence of this fragmentation, citing a significant increase in reported cases as a symptom of a society increasingly at odds with itself. At the heart of the opposition's argument is the claim that the Prime Minister has lost touch with the concerns of ordinary Canadians. His absence from public statements during the initial hours of the Montreal riots has been a focal point of criticism. While violence erupted on the streets, the Prime Minister was seen attending a private event, an image that his political adversaries have leveraged to portray him as indifferent or detached. This narrative has gained traction on social media, where frustration with the government's perceived inaction has been amplified. Government officials, however, have sought to reframe the discussion, condemning the violence in unequivocal terms. Ministers have labeled the protests as acts of criminality, emphasizing that such behavior cannot be justified under any circumstances. They argue that the government remains committed to addressing the root causes of hate crimes, including implementing stricter laws against online radicalization and enhancing community support programs. The exchange in Parliament has also highlighted deeper tensions between political parties. Opposition leaders have accused the government of enabling an environment where extremism can flourish, pointing to what they describe as lax immigration policies and inadequate law enforcement measures. They claim that the government's reluctance to designate certain groups as terrorist organizations has allowed dangerous ideologies to take root in Canadian communities. In response, the government has defended its track record, pointing to investments in public safety and initiatives aimed at fostering inclusion. Officials have stressed that their approach balances security with the values of openness and diversity that Canada prides itself on. They argue that framing the issue solely through a lens of security risks undermining these principles and further alienating marginalized communities. This back and forth reflects the broader challenge of governing in an era of polarized politics. As the government and opposition trade barbs, the underlying issues that sparked the unrest in Montreal remain unresolved. Economic inequality, housing affordability, and the rising cost of living have created fertile ground for discontent, which extremist groups have been quick to exploit. Beyond the political theater, the events in Montreal have left many Canadians questioning the direction of their country. Community leaders have called for a collective response to heal the divisions that have surfaced so starkly in recent weeks. They emphasize the need for dialogue and understanding, warning that failure to address the root causes of unrest will only lead to further polarization. Meanwhile, the human impact of the riots cannot be overlooked. Residents of affected neighborhoods are grappling with the physical and emotional aftermath of the violence, from repairing damaged property to coping with a heightened sense of vulnerability. For them, the political debates in Ottawa offer little solace. They seek tangible actions that will restore a sense of security and rebuild trust in the institutions meant to protect them. The Montreal protests have also drawn international attention, with observers noting the parallels to similar unrest in other parts of the world. This has sparked a broader conversation about the challenges facing democracies as they navigate issues of identity, inclusion, and governance in an increasingly interconnected world. For Canada, the events serve as a stark reminder of the importance of addressing these challenges head-on, lest the country's cherished reputation as a beacon of stability and tolerance be eroded. As the fallout from the protests continues to unfold, the government faces mounting pressure to demonstrate leadership. Critics argue that symbolic gestures and rhetorical condemnations are not enough. They call for concrete policy changes to address the underlying grievances that fueled the unrest, from housing and employment to education and social services. The opposition, for its part, has seized the opportunity to present itself as a viable alternative, promising a return to unity and stability. However, the extent to which they can deliver on these promises remains to be seen. For now, the political and social tensions exposed by the Montreal riot serve as a sobering reminder of the work that lies ahead in rebuilding trust and ensuring a more inclusive and equitable society. The political ramifications of the Montreal riots extend beyond domestic policy debates, influencing Canada's standing on the international stage. The country, often lauded for its multicultural harmony, now faces scrutiny from allies and critics alike. International media outlets have highlighted the irony of unrest in a nation that frequently positions itself as a model for inclusion and peace. This shift in perception poses challenges for Canadian diplomacy, as the government must now reconcile its image with the reality of internal discord. Human rights organizations have weighed in, urging Canada to address the systemic issues underpinning the unrest. They emphasize the importance of confronting racism, economic disparity, and the marginalization of certain groups. These organizations argue that failing to act decisively risks perpetuating cycles of inequality and alienation, which extremist factions can exploit to fuel further violence. Amidst these pressures, the business community has expressed concern about the potential economic impact of the riots. Montreal, a vital economic hub, has seen disruptions to local businesses, tourism, and trade. The cost of repairs, combined with the erosion of consumer confidence, threatens to hinder the city's recovery. Business leaders have called for swift action to restore stability, emphasizing the need for collaborative efforts between government, law enforcement, and community organizations. Civil society has also mobilized in the wake of the riots, with grassroots initiatives emerging to promote healing and reconciliation. Community members have organized cleanup efforts, support groups, and dialogues aimed at bridging divides. These actions highlight the resilience of ordinary Canadians in the face of adversity and their commitment to fostering a more united society. However, these grassroots efforts alone cannot address the structural challenges that have contributed to the unrest. Experts warn that without meaningful policy interventions, the country risks repeating the same patterns of division and unrest. They advocate for comprehensive reforms in areas such as education, healthcare, and social services to address the disparities that have left many feeling disenfranchised. As the debate continues, a generational divide has become increasingly apparent. Younger Canadians, who have been disproportionately affected by issues such as student debt, precarious employment, and housing unaffordability, are vocal in their demands for change. They have taken to social media to organize protests, share personal stories, and hold leaders accountable. This digital activism has amplified their voices but has also exposed them to online harassment and misinformation campaigns, complicating the discourse. For older generations, the riots evoke memories of past social upheavals, prompting comparisons and reflections on how Canada has changed. Many express frustration with what they see as a lack of accountability and moral leadership among politicians. At the same time, some warn against nostalgia, emphasizing the need to confront today's challenges with innovative solutions rather than relying on outdated approaches. Religious and cultural leaders have also entered the conversation, offering messages of unity and hope while calling for introspection. They stress the importance of compassion and empathy in addressing the divides that have come to the fore. Some have even proposed interfaith and intercultural dialogues as a way to rebuild trust and foster understanding among different communities. In the face of such complexity, there is no single solution to the challenges Canada now faces. The government must balance immediate measures to restore order with long-term strategies to address the root causes of unrest. This requires not only policy changes but also a shift in the political culture toward greater transparency, accountability, and collaboration. The Montreal riots have cast a long shadow over Canada, challenging its self-image and forcing its citizens to confront difficult truths about their society. Yet, within this moment of crisis lies an opportunity for renewal. By addressing the underlying issues with courage and determination, Canada has the chance to emerge stronger and more united, reaffirming its commitment to the values of equity, inclusion, and justice that it holds dear.